Hi guys. I've had a couple of people ask how I polish things because in a lot of my videos I just say I'll be off, polish this for a second and come back and it's done. But I've got to make something to polish, so I've got this old bolt. It's just an 8.8. It's a 5/8 bolt that I've cut the thread off. So I'm going to get it warm, see what we can make. I'll probably end up making just a little knife. I've seen one on that Pinterest site, out of a bolt and out of a spanner and things, so I'll probably give that a go. I'm not particularly brilliant at other ideas, so this video is basically going to be about polishing, the way I do it, not really the knife making, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that, hopefully. We'll start off with the big hammer, I think. Get it started, and then we'll go on to the 2-pounder, the shoe turning hammer, which I like for a lot of jobs. Let's see if that's hot yet. Yep, nice and hot. Let's give it some beans and get it flattened out. And so I've got no real idea what I'm doing. I'm just going to flatten it out into a sort of a blade shape and see how it comes, what it looks like. Got no preconceived ideas. And these bolts, although it's an 8.8 HT bolt, so we're just going to sort of flatten it out a bit. Nothing special. Yeah, so it's an 8.8 HT bolt, but it's not hard. It's tough, but not hard. So don't go making this and thinking you're going to put an edge on it. You won't. You know, if you're going to use it, it'd be a letter knife or something like that, or for more cheese. But you won't get an edge on it. So I'm not even going to bother to try. It's basically going to be decorative, possibly a letter knife. You could make it for a mechanic or something or other. Use as a letter knife at home, or an engineer, something like that. But as I say, basically all I'm doing this for is for something to polish for the few people that have asked for a demo. My polishing technique is fairly lazy, really. So it's sort of coming to a sort of shape. I'm not particularly fastidious about my polishing. I just, like with all my jobs, I want to get them done quick. So I do it not necessarily the quickest way, but the easiest way. Well, I suppose it is fairly quick and easy. You don't get the best results the way I do it. But we'll get to that once I've tried to put some shape into this thing. So I don't really know what I'm up to. Just spread it out a little bit. Get a bit of a bladey type shape. These bolt tongs aren't really the right size for this, but they'll do. Get a bit of a close up. Basically see what I'm up to, just drawing it out, thinning it out towards the sort of cutting edge. Try and get it running up the centre. A bit better. I ought to be doing this from the other side of the anvil where the rounded edge is. So I get a more of a rounded edge up by the neck, or where it joins the handle. I think I'll do that over the beak. I can't be bothered to set my camera up the other way around now. Thin it out a bit more. So I'm really winging this. I'm not really sure what I'm up to. I like to keep it straight whatever I do. Have another heat while I think about what I'm up to. I did say I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on this, but I seem to be spending quite a bit of time on it. Now I'm going to try and sort that neck pit business out. So I'm using the rounded end of the hammer there. So we're getting rounded both sides, and it's just taking out the hammer marks or the anvil marks, smoothing it off both ways, trying to keep it down the centre. So easy to get something off centre. If you don't catch it quickly, you can end up making a hell of a mess trying to get it straight back down the centre again. That's the general idea, I think. Don't think I'm going to spend too much more time on it, because as usual I haven't got a lot of time today, although it is Friday and I can't wait to get home. A funny old week this week. Not masses of work, which is why I've done quite a few videos this week. But I think because I haven't been quite so busy, I'm not sleeping quite so well, so I'm actually almost feel more tired this week than if I've had a really busy week. I'll get home, relax for the weekend. Don't work weekends anymore. I like my time off. Now I seem to be just fiddling for the sake of it. I think what I'm going to do now is turn it around and do something to the handle. Just burn the rest of the plating off, because you can see it was a plated bolt. Just want to make sure I get it all off. Right, you can see that's burnt off. Just going to tidy it up a little bit. Try and put a bit of shape in the handle. Just going to cool off the head so I can hit it. So, of course, I wasn't holding that properly. That's when it flies up and hits you in the face. Still not really holding that properly. I ought to have the tongs over the top of it so it's wedged against the blade's wedged against the bottom of the tongs, but just being lazy really. Well, that's sort of what I was looking for. Just try and make sure that it's all running down the centre. Dead easy to get these things out of line. Like I said earlier, if you don't keep an eye on it, it's really difficult sometimes to get it back in line without doing too much damage. And that's basically it. I think I'm going to leave it at that, and then we'll grind up the rest. So I'm just going to cool it out. There's no point trying to harden or temper it or anything like that. And so, as I said earlier, you're not going to get an edge on it, so I'm not even going to try. So that's it. The basic blank. And what I'm going to do, first of all, you can see it's sort of reasonably rough still with hammer marks. I'm just going to go over it with a grinder and get a basic smoothish finish and get the sort of shape, refine the shape that I want. So we'll stick that up in the vise, And I've just got one of these flap discs. This is one of those, I'm not sure what they call them. Quite an expensive one. It's supposed to last longer. Can't for the life of me think what it is, but I'm sure you all know what it is. Just going to run this down. It's not a particularly fine grit, this flat disc, so I'm going to get quite a few marks in it. Obviously if you've got some nice smooth discs, you can do a lot more with it, take a lot more marks out of it with a smoother disc. I'm basically just shaping it. So that's done one side, just turn it over and do the other. You can take a long time doing this to get it much more even and accurate. I'm just doing it pretty quickly just to give you an idea of how I go about it, my process. Obviously it depends what it is I'm polishing as well. Like the other day when I did the cheese cutter, all I did with that, I didn't do any grinding on that, I just ran over it with an electric wire brush, take the worst of the scale off. There you go, you can see it's fairly coarse still, marks in it, but it's basically got the shape I want now. Okay, so here's my polishing equipment. Basically this is just a high-speed motor, 2,800 revs out of an old cement mixer. Most single-phase motors run at about 1450, but this is twice the speed. And the higher the speed you've got, the better. I've just tack welded a taper on here. You can buy them from your local supplier. It's especially for polishing, and you just stick these mops on. And this one's the one I use for finishing. It's sort of like material. It's really quite stiff and it's stitched tightly. And you've got these that are really loosely wound. I don't know what you'd use that on, probably brass or copper or something for finishing off. You've got these which are like sisal string, pretty useless. I don't know what they're supposed to be for, but I've not had a lot of success with them. Another one which is sort of in between the stiff one and the soft one. And the one I use the most is this one. I use this for all sorts. I get it from my Farrier suppliers. It's like a sort of Scotch-Brite. It's reasonably solid. It's still fairly flexible, very light, but it's got grit in it. He won't actually tell me exactly what it is. I think he's worried I'm going to go direct to the supplier and get some because they're quite expensive. But they do take off the material quite nicely. This is one I've started already, so I'll use that one. Now all we do is get your blank, or you could, I was going to say, do a lot more with wet and dry. Take out a lot of those marks first. Depends on what time you've got and your resources and all the rest of it. But I'm lazy, so I tend to use this. I use these sort of Scotch-Brite wheels for sharpening my Farrier's knives. So I get through a fair few. As you can hopefully see already, it's starting to take out some of those marks, and that's literally a couple of seconds. It's just smoothing them out a bit. And it's just a case of patience, really, rubbing it up and down. Reasonable amount of pressure on it. So if you've got the time, you'd probably be best off to go with some fairly coarse wet and dry to start with. It's a damn sight cheaper than these wheels, so if you can get the worst of the marks out with the wet and dry, that'll focus. You can see that's taking a lot of the marks out pretty quickly. Still a few little ones there which I'm not going to worry too much about, but I'd like to get at least one side of this done quite smoothly so I can show you. It's getting a bit warm. That's one thing this polishing does do. It warms your steel up pretty damn quickly. You can see the sparks coming off that. I think that's obviously the grit in the disc. And obviously where you've got more scale, you'll get more sparks. But they're a really good disc. So I wish I knew what they were called, because I can't find them on the Scotch-Brite site, so I don't think they're actually made by Scotch-Brite. And there you can see that's taken an awful lot of them out, an awful lot of those marks. So what we can do, whip that wheel off, stick the heavy mop on, and the other important thing for this job is this polishing compound. Some people call it soap, some people call it rouge, all sorts of different grades. I think the green one, I'm not sure what the green one's, steel. The white one's stainless steel. Actually the green one might be for brass. This grey one I use it's quite coarse, I use that on the steel to start with, and the brown one, it's pretty general. I don't use it an awful lot because it leaves a lot of residue. Anyway, we'll start off with the coarse grey one, just touch a little bit on the mop, and then run your knife across it, or whatever it is you're polishing. You have to be a bit careful. Make sure you're going away or with the wheel. You don't want to get your knife or whatever it is you're polishing caught. See, that's starting to bring it up pretty quickly already. It's highlighting the marks that are left in it, but it's polishing it pretty quick. So yeah, you don't want to get whatever it is you're polishing caught by going against the wheel, because I did that once and nearly took my thumb off. It was I don't know if you've watched the video of my scrap knife. It's a tiny little knife I made from a scrap of Farrier's rasp. It caught up and it spun it round so quickly it whipped the end off my thumb. Luckily it was sharp enough that it was a nice clean cut, but it was pretty nasty. See, that's coming up pretty bright. Same with all these things, the more time and effort you put in, the better results you get. Just take some of the polish off. I don't know if it'll focus properly, but that's starting to come up pretty bright. So I'm just going to spend a bit more time on there. I'll turn the camera off because it's pretty boring, and I'll come back once I've got it nearly finished. Alright, we're nearly there. You can see I've got my gloves on now because this knife is getting really hot. Keep cooling it out, but you have to push quite hard, and the friction really heats this up quickly. So I can work it for longer. Just bung the old gloves on. Most of you know I don't like wearing gloves for using machines. but needs must, as they say. Alright, I think we're just about there. I'm going to call it a day. You can see things reflected in that. As I say, if I'd spent a bit more time in the first place, with a bit wet and dry, that would have got out all those marks you can still see. As you can see, it's reflecting all sorts. So that's basically it. I've just run the disc over that handle just to clean that up a bit. Let's get these gloves off, and they're putting more oil on the blade than it's dulling it. Let's see if we can wipe it off. So that's my method of polishing. I say, it's not the best, it's not the only, but it's the way I tend to do things. So there's a little letter knife for somebody. I hope that's explained a few things for people, particularly the ones who requested the polishing demo. So we'll hopefully catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.